So suppose I do this. So suppose I replace him, Jeff Rosen, with him, Jeff Clark. What would you do? And I said, Mr. President, I would resign immediately. I'm not working 1 minute for this guy, who I had just declared was completely incompetent. And so the president immediately turned to Mr. Engel, and he said, Steve, you wouldn't resign, would you? And he said, absolutely I would, Mr. President. You leave me no choice. And then I said, and we're not the only ones. No one cares if we resign. If Steve and I go, that's fine. It doesn't matter. But I'm telling you what's going to happen. You're going to lose your entire department leadership. Every single AAG will walk out on your entire department leadership will walk out within hours. And I don't know what happens after that.
That's part of the powerful testimony we heard during today's January 6th hearing. Our team coverage continues now. Let's start with ABC News political director Rick Klein, also joined by a former Republican Congresswoman from Virginia, Barbara Comstock, Amanda Renteria, the Chief Executive Officer of Code for America, and then also the former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Khan Nowadays. I appreciate all of your time. But Rick, I do want to start with you. First, what were some key takeaways from today's hearing?
It was a lot worse and a lot closer to utter chaos than we ever imagined. How close the Justice Department came to being utterly gutted by a series of resignations that would have been triggered by the president's decision to name someone whose only real qualification for the job, it would appear, was that he was willing to do anything Trump wanted vis-a-vis the last election. That would have triggered, before January 6th, an almost incalculable fallout in terms of a constitutional crisis, chaos in various states, upending the duly enacted votes of millions and millions of American citizens. It is just stunning to think about that. And while we knew some of the details before, to learn about how wide and deep that pressure campaign was, involving even the Department of Defense at one point, just every single conspiracy theory, all of it being disputed to Trump himself, still he pursued it to the very, very end, the very bitter end. And the ultimate takeaway to me is that the committee is painting a portrait of January 6th as kind of a backup option. They brought in the cavalry and brought in the people that were ready to disrupt democracy only because literally every other effort had already failed.
And one of the lines that stood out from the former president, allegedly telling members of the DOJ that you don't know the internet as well as I do. I want to go to Barbara on this. The acting attorney general, Jeffrey Rosen, said he wasn't going to accept being fired by his subordinate. And when Jeffrey Clark told him that Trump was offering him the job as attorney general and that he was going to take it, I mean, what did that say to you about the dysfunction within the DOJ at that time?
Well, it says to me that Donald Trump knew that what he was doing was wrong, and that he was just trying to find whatever weak link he could and say, just say it's corrupt and I'll take care of the rest. And Jeff Clark was that weak link that he found, and he was now trying to force on everybody. But thank goodness, not, these guys, Trump was calling them. He was calling Jeff Rosen every day during Christmas, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, trying to shake him down like a mafioso. And these guys held strong, and they went and kind of outdid him by saying, everybody's going to walk out the door. Now, I think maybe some White House people would have walked out the door too, but I think it was very powerful. And as a former Justice Department official, I am so appalled at the idea of a president calling over and doing these kind of things. And I think there's still a lot more that was going on that we still don't know about, that a grand jury needs to closely look at. And I think there'll be quite a few indictments, I would expect, coming out of this.
Amanda, I'd like for you to hop in here. I mean, do you think the committee is doing a good job of making its case?
They are. I think they are telling this story from so many different angles that's giving life to the reality of what people were going through. And I understand that, how close we were But this isn't the life of a public servant. When you are in those positions of power, when you are trying to actually uphold institutions of democracy, you shouldn't have to go through these kinds of conversations, or you're willing to walk away from a career because you're trying to do the right thing. The seriousness of what this means about a president who actually used the power of his position to bully others in the way that we are seeing across every level of government in all different institutions is something we all have to grapple with. And what are we going to do about it is going to be the next big question here. What is the Justice Department going to do about it? How are we going to ensure elections going forward? How do we make sure that we can still bring public servants into government to be able to drive leadership in this country? So a lot of things that I'm feeling at the moment from this kind of conversation, and seeing true public servants stand up at the moment of truth and say, I will walk away from this career if we don't have the right path now.
Well, and Amanda, you bring up some really good questions going forward, and I'm actually going to pose those questions to Khan. Listen, this isn't a criminal trial of former President Trump. So what happens next, and how are these revelations going to be used going forward?
And you're absolutely right, Alex. This is not a criminal trial, but it's being presented as one for the public to hear, because what the committee is trying to do is present all its evidence. And I think the audience is DOJ. The committee, what they're doing is giving DOJ the building blocks, the evidence, potentially for DOJ to take this. And we've already heard that it's kind of working. I mean, we don't know exactly what the basis for the search warrant on Jeffrey Clark's home was that came about yesterday. But in order to get a search warrant on anybody, a judge has to sign it and has to determine that, well, yes, there's probable cause to believe a crime has been committed. And second, the place to be searched may have evidence of that crime. So I think the end game here for the committee is to set forth the facts like a grand jury would, and then potentially put it to DOJ to decide what to do.
Well, we will certainly be watching as this progresses into July. Rick Klein, Barbara Comstock, Amanda Renteria, and Khan Nowadays, thank you very much. I'm Alex Prochet. Thank you for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. The news continues right after this.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.